The history of the tricycle in the Philippines is a creation of ingenuity by the Filipino. A motorcycle with sidecar is a three-wheeled vehicle and is typically driven by the rear wheel only. In the Philippines, a motorcycle with sidecar is known as a tricycle, and in Cebu a tricycle. But what is the history of the tricycle in the Philippines? The history of the Filipino tricycle begins around 1946, with the end of the Second World War. The tricycle evolved in the provinces from abandoned military vehicles from Japanese retreating forces. The Allied occupation allowed the Filipino to create the iconic jeepney and tricycle. Icons of the Philippines. Tricycles are typically a popular means of passenger taxi transport in the Philippines. They are also used for just about anything to do with small to medium goods transport where the need arises. A tricycle is the equivalent of car and trailer of the Western world. In the Philippines, the iconic tricycle taxi service became a means of income for many poorer families to this day. With the import of foreign and cheaper motorcycles, the sidecar developed, by the Filipino, into a more accommodating passenger compartment. Roomier than a narrow single cramped seat arrangement like the British-American torpedo single-seater sidecar design. The Filipino tricycle offers a roomier passenger compartment. It can sit two people side by side quite comfortably, or as they do, several people hanging on as it travels to its destination. The tricycle moves everything from children going to school and workers to work, to households getting goods and water delivery service, commercial goods to and from the markets. The tricycle is there at your service. A very ingenious and effective door-to-door service. The European-style motorcycle and sidecar by the 1950s declined in popularity in UK, Europe and USA as the car took over. About the same time, obesity began to raise its head. They still exist in the EU and have a small community of mainly enthusiasts who restore, maintain and cherish these three-wheeled chariots. The Filipino tricycle history. In the search for tricycle history information, I came across this 2004 IATSS research paper on Davao City transport. It makes reference to 1948 to 2001 transportation. The Philippine tricycle is classified as a motor vehicle composed of motorcycle fitted with a single-wheel sidecar or with a two-wheel cab, operated as a public transport for a fee. When use of tricycles as public transportation replaced the tricycads of Manila in the 1950s, other cities subsequently followed, including Davao City. Three forms of tricycles can be observed: side cab, center cab and open cab. Motorcycle innovation such as tricycles has gained wide acceptance as a legitimate mode of public transportation in most areas of the Philippines. The IATSS research paper acknowledges tricycles in use in the 1950s as replacing pedicabs. After the war 1942 to 1945 in the Philippines, a large number of military, Japanese and Allied motorcycles, some with sidecars, jeeps and trucks, were sold off, left behind, or scrapped. Ingenious Filipinos made good use of these motorcycles and sidecars, as they did with the military jeeps, the infamous jeepney and trucks. When was the first true Philippines tricycle? Who knows? Lost in the darkness of time, no doubt. But given the ingenuity of the Filipino, you can be assured it was in line with the iconic jeepney. Signs of the mini jeepney or modified jeeps were seen on streets in Manila in 1946. Created from spare parts and neglected wartime machines, and a need to transport goods and people. A desire to earn a living will always bring out the creativity. The tricycle continues to live and thrive today in the Philippines. The motorcycle and sidecar would become the iconic taxi tricycle of the Philippines. A suitable taxi vehicle to maneuver the narrow streets and tight alleys, and transport people and goods to and from their door. A mode of transport that the country embraced and made their own. Tricycles developed within the provinces to meet the needs of the people and the conditions of the region. Designs evolved and developed into what we know today as the iconic tricycles of the Philippines. Along with the jeepney, the Filipino tricycle is a tourist attraction along with its daily use as a people and goods transporter. Motorcycles with sidecars are not usually considered to be tricycles. Yet in the Philippines you will know them as tricycles: Filipino, tricycle, Cebuano, tricycle. Thank you for listening. This has been a podcast from Tricycles Philippines.